Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon your time zone. Welcome to our webinar on search and AI. This is the third of our series. I'm going to go to that. Well, I'll show you the sequence in just a minute. But if you missed either the first two, you can go to the website. We have a great panel today, and I'll let folks do a quick introduction of themselves. So I'm Seth Early. I'm founder and CEO of Early Information Science. Many of you know who I am. And many of you know about the book I wrote called The AI-Powered Enterprise, which talks about ontologies as being fundamental to AI initiatives. And we'll hear more about that today. And what's interesting is I read an article just the other day that said how Palantir, who's that really well-known AI company and analytics company, and they've been around forever doing tons of government contracts, kind of first to the market with a lot of stuff. An article that said, their secret sauce were ontologies. So I was like, okay, that's not so secret, but great. It's your sauce. I'm glad it's your sauce. I was part of your sauce because I think of it as well. Anyway, so Patrick, do you want to give a quick thumbnail of who you are? And
Sure. My name is Patrick Heppel. I am managing partner of Patrick Heppel Partners, and we are a consulting organization providing consulting services in the search and AI space for people who are trying to get their heads around what all this means.
Abdel, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm the head of product and technology at DBM. My background, like Patrick, was in search, and then I keep moving up in the journey to SEO, PPC, and track the whole user journey from Google down to your website, relevance.
Terrific. And how about yourself, Chris?
I'm Chris Black. I am currently a fractional CMO, COO, focusing on early stage tech startups. I've always been at the cutting edge of technology, so obviously Gen AI and all of the impacts that that's having on business today is something that I'm particularly interested in. Of course, that includes with search.
And Chris is actually doing some work with EIS. Patrick hopefully will be doing some work with EIS on an upcoming project. And Chris is working with us on marketing and messaging and taking that 25, 30 years of experience and boiling it down into meaningful messages so that you guys can all engage with us as necessary. Okay, so again, we're about an hour, about 50 minutes. We'll try to take questions throughout. And at the end, we are recording, of course, so that you can listen to this afterwards or you can share it with your colleagues. And we do have a couple of polls. We'd love to hear your input on that. And there's Q&A, there's a Q&A tab where you can ask questions throughout. And then we have a short post-session survey, which we would love to get your feedback on. So thank you for that. And Early has been around for 30 years. As I mentioned, we're headquartered in Boston, and we don't have our tagline on here, but it's making information more usable, more findable, and more valuable. And that cuts across lots of different industries. So whatever industry you're in, we can help. We work in product data, we work in content, we work in knowledge strategy, customer engagement. I've written for Harvard Business Review. I've been recently interviewed for a couple of Harvard Business Analytic Report special research projects on generative AI. I can certainly share those with you folks if you haven't seen those. And here we are in a little timeline here. This is better than bullets. So Chris, thank you. This is Chris's first impression on the marketplace from EIS perspective. She took those boring bullets and she put it into a nice little timeline here. So we are at session number 3. We'll have 4 more sessions to go. I did get someone asking if they could be on one of our panels. Send me your background. Tell me what your angle is. And we'd love to consider additional resources. This is really a community thing, and I'm happy to have other folks on. So I wanted to start off with how are you doing in SEO overall? It range from what is SEO? Hopefully it won't be too many of those. Our SEO sucks. Things are okay, but we can do better. My SEO is great, but what do I do about GEO and with GPTs, or none of the above, and let us know what that is. So this is the traditional popcorn popping portion of the session where I watch as people are answering the questions, and I can kind of see them coming in. And then when they slow down and I start to smell burning popcorn, I stop the popcorn popping. So I do have what is SEO? That could be facetious. It could be true, right? And people are not necessarily familiar with this. And again, a lot of folks are in the things are okay, but we could be doing better. So if you have any other input on this. We have about half of the folks responding. For the other half, go ahead, pick a slot. You can say none of the above if those don't apply. And yeah, no, don't be afraid to say you don't know about SEO. SEO is a topic that is usually for specialists in the industry, and so sometimes people don't have knowledge of that. Okay, well, I think that's enough popcorn. So let's go ahead and share the results so you can get a couple of folks who are less familiar with SEO. Nobody's saying it sucks, which is good. And a lot of folks are kind of in that, yeah, we can do better bucket. But and then there are folks who are doing well. But now, what do we do in generative search, right? What do we do with generative pre-chain transformers? And then a few are saying, well, one person is saying none of the above. Just let us know in chat. Okay, I'm going to stop the sharing there and move on. So first, I do want to say that this is a new paradigm, right? It is really very different than what we're used to with search engine optimization. Search engine optimization many times was all about building content that was containing words that you wanted people to, wanted the engines to pick up on, and words that people would be searching on, or related concepts. So many times you would get terminology that you want to optimize on, and then you would just add variations of that terminology. So much of this was about, if it's knowledge management and knowledge engineering and knowledge integration and knowledge management systems and knowledge architecture and knowledge and information management, whatever it might be. But there'd be a lot of other, maybe it's tacit learning, or there'd be other concepts that be related. And many times you would get these optimization spreadsheets that would basically say, okay, try to include as many of these terms as you can, right? And then it's not really written for a human, it's written for a machine. It's written for a machine that is trying to pick up those keyword densities. Now, there's more than terminology, and Google uses hundreds and hundreds. I understood it was about 200, but Abdel is going to tell us it's about 1,500 different signals. But everything from incoming links to the quality of the content, the quality of the referring links, the authoritativeness of the site, the age of the site. But there's a lot of stuff. But really came down to what could you do with your content? You could add terminology to the content. And I was writing some, with one of the tools, I was writing some content, and I was like really trying to score high and get all the words in. And then I was told that you will actually get penalized if you try to do too much keyword stuffing in that content, right? So, but it really wasn't written in a very human understandable way, right? It was, I like to use different variations of terminology when I am writing or when I'm speaking, just to make it more varied and more understandable. But that was not necessarily good in SEO content. But when you use terms over and over and over again, you can see it, you can feel it, it reduces readability and understanding. So what GEO does is it says, we want comprehensive answers, and we want those answers to be specific and meaningful and not necessarily long drawn out content, right? We want to build things in question answering format. And what we're doing is, what those engines are doing is they're synthesizing information from multiple sources that end up creating a very unique response to a query, to a prompt. And so you want to be one of those sources that it pulls in and that it cites. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that the result, that the content itself is written in a different way. So it's trying to provide very accurate and relevant and personalized information within that user interface. And what that also means is you're trying to get the answer in the user interface. Chris, I know you had spent a little bit of time researching this and researching the impact on click-throughs. And when we have that answer within the search results, it doesn't give us an incentive to click through. So tell me, Chris, what's that mean in terms of where things are going and what the impact has been so far?
Yeah, so some of you have probably already noticed that your traffic has been going down, right? And maybe you think it's rankings, maybe you've already started trying to figure out what to do to increase those clicks again. But what's happening is that zero-click search is really starting to take force. It's great for us as users, right? We go to a search, we want to know how to make something or where to go to buy something, and we type it in and the answer just pops up. It's what Ask Jeeves, if any of you remember the 90s, that's what Ask Jeeves wanted to be, right? Is something that delivered an answer. Well, we have that now, and these are AI driven. So we've got search, it's going out, it's grabbing content from a few sites, and then it's using generative AI to create a paragraph or some answers for you. And if we're lucky, it's cited and maybe it comes to our pages and maybe it doesn't. But overall, from a user experience, it's kind of fantastic. Like, we don't get lists anymore. And if you see here on the left, 2016, we have some images. Before that, we didn't even necessarily have images. It was just a list of links. And they were all ranked based on SEO and all of the things that Abdallah is going to talk to us about a little bit later. But, you get some ads, you get some images, you get some organic listings. You kind of get a little bit of everything, but what's above the fold are some of those organic listings. Today, and I could have given you that 2024 and it would have just scrolled and scrolled and scrolled, but our organic listings are now falling below the fold. Oftentimes, we're getting an AI analysis, a Gen AI thing at the top. We're getting images, we're getting videos, but our number one position in this case is barely above the fold, but I think many of us that are using search are noticing that that number one position is going down. Now, as SEO specialists, we might think, crap, our rankings have tanked. But what I'm showing here, and by the way, all of this comes from Orbit Media Studios. I want to make sure to give them good credit. They're doing great work here as far as content and SEO trending. So if you don't follow them, I highly recommend them. But what they're showing here is that the rankings are generally holding steady. It's just that the traffic drops. That's going to have a bunch of ramifications for us. It does mean that hopefully our conversions on our site will go up, because if they're coming to the site, they're probably more commercially viable. Now, if you're in B2B, gosh, this world gets really tough, because most of the time we are providing thought leadership. That is how we make sales and do our marketing in the B2B space. That thought leadership now, that's going to be bubbled up right at that top in that generative AI created blurb that provides data. So what we need to do probably moving forward is trying to make sure that it's our content that's bubbling up, making sure that we do whatever we can. And we'll talk about that here in a couple of minutes of some of the things that we can do.
So this is kind of a table that just explains where SEO is focusing, the user interaction, the goals, the structure, the metrics, the role of multimedia, the tools, what the impact will be. And of course, when you start seeing these side by side, you see that SEO was really about keywords and answers, but the keywords and ranking, but the GEO is really about context and the AI-driven answers. So can you formulate your content in such a way that it answers a question that a user will want to ask, right? And it's building it in more bite-sized chunks. It's kind of the return of FAQs in a way, but on steroids, chunking all of your content, making sure all of your content is answering specific questions, right? Not just, oh, here's a bunch of content that covers all this keywords, and yeah, okay, so I have a high keyword density. That doesn't necessarily help, right? Because it's not answering a specific question. So it's really a mind shift in terms of how you need to think about actually writing the content. The user interaction is not going to, SEO is focused on click-throughs. GEO is really is answering from the AI without a click. So again, it's a zero-click searches. You're trying to rank for higher clicks, rank higher and get more clicks in SEO. In GEO, you want to be selected, right? You want your content to bubble to the top as the AI is selecting answers and finding answers. And in terms of the content structure, it's very different, right? It's long form, it's heavy, it's heavy keywords density. Whereas for GEO, it's more conversational, it's more concise, it's more about relevant content that answers that specific question. And then, of course, multimedia was not necessarily, metrics. Click-throughs, right? Site visits. But in GEO, it's really about visibility. It's, are we even on the page? Are we even in the room, at the table, on the field, whatever you want to say, right? It's how you get that visibility there. And then for SEO, multimedia was not really not that necessary, because you could have great clickbait with an infographic, right? People love infographics. But for GEO, it really is important, right? The images, the video, the infographics, and then we'll talk about how to optimize those, because you do need descriptive content, descriptive descriptions and descriptive metadata that has a way of telling people what that content is about. And then the tools, again, are really going from keywords and backlinks and metadata tags are not as metadata schema is important, but we have seen what's happened with overstuffing metadata tags. So we have to be careful with that. But now GEO is more natural language, and it's also data-driven content. You're going to hear from Abdel about schema.org and how important that is and how important ontologies are. So structuring that content and making it more data focused and structured with data schema will be much more important. And of course, SEO is going to be less impactful as no-click grows, and GEO is really going to be essential for the search visibility. Chris, did you want to add more context, or Abdel, do you want to add more context to this?
Yeah, I think the GEO, what I see with my client, is brand awareness. Think of it as a brand awareness. People are getting mad. They're like, I'm creating content. Google just show it. You're going to get the brand awareness. Whereas SEO, to your point, you get the click and the visitor. So it's a different level.
Chris,
What I love about this, though, is that we can actually start writing content for humans and not like trying to stuff those keywords into there and picking, oh, well, this is the one that should get us the most traffic, that's not too competitive. I've always hated doing all of that. I just want to talk as a person to a person.
I know.
And this transforms us back into what I think will be a much better user experience.
I agree with you. And Pat, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I agree, because many times I would feel constrained and I would feel like I was going against my instincts when I was writing SEO content that just was trying to go for keyword density. It was like, I didn't want to write it that way. And I was feeling like I was forced to write it that way, whereas I would like to write it for more clarity and more conciseness. Patrick, any thoughts from your perspective?
Yeah, we're at an industry inflection point, and people have become very familiar with how to, trick a search engine into getting it to put you in the place that you want. And we're now in a place where we need to relearn how to influence what the search engine gives back. And it's hard, but it's a necessary transition, and the transition is happening whether we like it or not. So I think this is an important conversation to talk about, okay, how do we relearn how to market our websites so that we can get the kind of visibility that we need on our content?
I just want to take a quick look at the comments and questions. One was about BM. Chris or Abdel, can you talk about BM25 in terms of search algorithm?
BM25 is this sort of the default search algorithm that the majority of keyword sites use to determine what the rank order will be. It's based in Lucene, which is I would say, far and away the most commonly used search engine outside of Google and Bing. Even Microsoft uses the BM25 algorithm. So it's a ranking algorithm, essentially, is how you score documents. And we could go into all the details, but it's not important. Google uses a completely different algorithm, and Abdel can talk more about that.
Yeah. So BM25 is something that a search tool might use. Is that more for on-site search?
Yeah, absolutely. Enterprise search.
Yeah.
It's the foundation of Elasticsearch, of Solar, the most popular open source search engines in the world that are used across industries throughout the world today.
Great. Well, here's a question with SEO. With SEO, we can use various tools to gauge keyword query frequency and impression rates for our content showing up in searches. With GPTs providing such unique customized responses, what tools can we use to identify relevant topic frequency in our brand mentions in GPT responses? That's kind of what we're going to be talking about shortly. Is there a concise answer right now? But it really is about the things we're going to be talking about in terms of how you write your content. But is there a quick bullet that you guys want to provide?
I just said, I'm going to connect the two. What Patrick said, Google is using a very dynamic approach. So a lot of it is a click stream, very dynamic algorithm. So every vertical, what I see with my client, every vertical, they use different click stream, different vertical. So what I suggest to the client, let's study the top 10 results. Let's study the top 3, see what they done, to your point. Then you can reverse engineer to see what content, how they're answering it. So you have to study who they're ranking. That's a big signal. Walk backward from that vertical for that question. So you can see. As far as a tool, I usually use Keyword Planner. I have access to a lot of Keyword Planner. Sometimes SEO Rush, but the best data is probably Google tool, the Keyword Planner.
Mhm.
Yeah, but as we get away from keywords, that's probably going to be less interesting because now we're talking context, and so it's not a specific keyword. I don't know that there's tools out today to help with this, but how I work with my clients is talk to your salespeople. If you're in marketing and you're doing, SEO work, you're probably in the marketing function. Talk to your salespeople. This is where creating go-to-market teams, sales and customer success and marketing all come together. And now it's always been important, but even now, as we think about SEO, the questions that we have to address on our website, our customers are asking that. Our prospects are asking these questions. So now they're going to be going to search, they're going to be going to Perplexity or ChatGPT. They're going to ask their questions there, hoping to come up with answers. Those are the kinds of things that we need to make sure are on the site. Can we measure it through one of these keyword tracking tools yet? Not to my knowledge. Will we be able to? Yeah, probably at some point, maybe. Don't know what that looks like. But today, work with your salespeople, work with your customer success people, and there's questions that come up over and over again. Make sure those are on the website.
Absolutely. Chris, did you want to talk a little bit about this particular experience that you cited?
So this can be really hard to explain when we're just talking or in tables. And so I wanted to give a great example. Again, this comes from Orbit Media. What do you get with a browser when you go and look for the ultimate guacamole recipe? You get a bunch of ads, you get a bunch of offers. Maybe it's a coupon to your local grocery store. You get some tracking tags, you get some images, a lot of words, and you get to a guac recipe at some point after all of that. You go to your favorite, chat system of choice. There's no ads, there's no pop-ups, there's no tracking, no images yet. And you get a guac recipe, and it's very easy. You're not having to go through a million different things to try and figure it out. Your app is just going to expose that, and you're not having to go to anyone's website to get to it with all of the stuff that entails, including all the advertising and tracking codes.
Yeah, and lately I've been trying different things. If I have a question or I want to cite a certain fact or detail, and I go to Google, and I will get a lot of noise, right? Even when you click through to the site, it's like, where is my answer? Where is my answer? Where is my answer? Oh, I got to scroll, 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 scroll. I got to find it. I got to find it. Okay. Oh, here it is. Way after I go through all that nonsense. And then if I put it in ChatGPT, it's like, oh, okay, thank you. I get the answer. So it is a really good user experience, but it does interfere with the business model. So, one of the things that we realize is that, we're still trying to discover the levers, right, across different types of platforms, and they're not well known. We do understand SEO, we don't understand GEO as much. However, we can say that the quality of the content is always going to be relevant, and we don't want content that is strictly, and one of the things people are saying is, what's so great about generative AI? Oh, we're able to create all this great marketing content, right? And we could create all this content for our website, and we create all these articles, and we create all this. That's spam. That becomes spam. If you just use stuff that's coming out of generative mechanisms, if you're just using the Gen AI for creation of content without your voice, without your unique perspective, without your tone and your tenor, it is going to be detected as spam. It'll be spam content. There's a lot of spam content out there right now. So you can identify it. You can see it. You read it and you're like, oh boy, this sounds very machine generated. And some of the GPT-0 tools are not that accurate, so they can't always detect it. But I think Chris Penn, who I like to quote from time to time, put in the Declaration of Independence or something into a GPT-0 and said, this is all AI generated. So again, you can't tell that, but but the tools are getting to the point where they are identifying generated content that will not help get your information into the search, the AI powered search answers. And of course,
I'm going to push back a little on that, I'm going to push back. There's a lot of false negatives and a lot of false positives, right? We see this a lot in education. So I'm going to caution a little bit on that one as to how the accuracy of the tools. They are trying to determine.
Yeah.
But if it's well-written content and you know how to use an Oxford comma, you
Mhm.
English majors out there understand what I'm talking about, that can make it flagged as, you know, as a GPT generated kind of
Right.
content. So I want to caution on that.
Oh, yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
go back.
No, that's what I'm saying, is that they're not terribly accurate. And when he did put in the Declaration of Independence, it said it was AI generated, which obviously is a false positive. But you're right. You have to be. But I think what's important is putting your brand voice in, making it aligned with your style. When I try to have ChatGPT rewrite something for me, I give it my articles as a template. I say, use my tone, use my voice, use my terminology, and then write up this conversation that we've had. So it's I'm generating the content, I'm giving it the style, and then I'm taking the output from that perspective. But this is a fast changing area, and we do have to stay on top of all of this as it evolves and moves. Any other comments or questions or comments on this topic? Let's see. We have a question. From what I've been reading and hearing, this is from Chris Crawford. Content should answer basic questions in a succinct, clear manner. This should help to be included in the AI response and hopefully recommended on the right rail. Yes, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. It's a really good observation. So I would agree with that. Let's see.
Kieran also was asking about whether or not we need to redesign our website to be more favorable towards GEO.
Mm-hmm.
So that semantic search will work. I'm happy to take some of that on. In that we don't have to redesign our website per se. Now, all of the SEO qualities are still important. It still helps drive all kinds of different things. So, keep the meta tags in there and so forth. What we do want to do, though, is we may need to rewrite sections of our site, make it more human readable, make it more concise, like we just spoke about. So bite-sized chunks. But we also want to make sure that we're adding this additional content, so images and video content. A lot of that's going to get prioritized, and we'll talk more about that here in a couple of minutes. But as far as redesigning a site, I wouldn't say you have to, go out and get a whole new website done.
Yeah. So let's take another poll. Where are you on your journey with GEO? Not on the radar. Planning, continuing your SEO work, doing something different. None of the above. So planning, not on the radar for some folks. Looks like a significant number. Some are just continuing their work. Some are planning. Doesn't look like a lot of folks are doing anything different yet. Don't have any of those answers. So looks like we have about half of you responding so far. If you want to go ahead and put your vote in for what you're doing. So a lot of folks aren't really thinking about this right now. They're not necessarily on the radar, which is interesting. Give you another minute or so.
I wish we'd thought to ask if people were seeing declines in their search traffic.
Oh, yeah, that would be a good question, right?
Yeah, if people aren't planning for it, maybe their sites aren't affected yet.
Maybe they're not being impacted. Yeah, that could be it. Yep. Then we see one person doing something different, and then a none of the above. Okay, let's close the polling for now and share the results so you get a sense of where people are. And a lot of folks are not on the radar or planning, and then some folks are doing the other. Again, I think it's early stages, so you may not see the impact yet. I know we have not seen a huge drop off yet, but I have to also revamp and relook at my content. Great. Okay, so let's carry on here. So Abdel, did you want to talk about this slide?
I think the foundation for SEO and GEO, it's the same. Basically, when I work with client, I start investigating the SEO drop or any GEO also, is I have to check for the page. Is the page indexed? When last time Google indexed it? Somebody asked that question, what do I need to prepare for GEO? One of the things that I've noticed with all my clients, it had a bias toward recency. The generative AI picked something recent. So update your key content. The second thing that I would say here, also create bookmark if you start having long content. Actually, if you have bookmark, Google creates site link in your SEO, which increase your CTR. So I think what you see on the left side, it's really did your page register? Did it get updated on Google Index? And I'm amazed how many clients go create pages, they don't pay attention to the error in the index. So always double check that. The second, And the third one, metadata. What I'm seeing with B2B clients, Google for, and then every vertical is different now with SEO, but also for paid ad, I work on both, is you should have one topic, the landing page of the SEO. Focus on the one topic, because the one topic, go deeper, answer the question, will give you more authority. AI look for freshness, authority, and you look for organized information. So organizing was bookmarket. So I think that topic, because now Google changed everything to be dynamic. Patrick and I work with deep learning. Now all the quality score is done by vector search. And the vector score you if you have one topic. So Seth did a good job. And Chris, talk about content. At the end of the day, it's still human talking to human. Are you writing relevant content for human? Somebody question. It's not the big answer. It's the big question and the big answer. So what I done for a lot of B2B clients, I'm going to go back to what Chris said. To improve that, we double the traffic. How? We took all the G2 review. We took their data from CRM, feedback from the client, and generated content around it. You'll be amazed. It's not the head query, it's the long tail. What question the client asking? Then that leads me to the last point, which is engagement. If you go back, so if you write the right content and the right experience, the engagement become more important. And if you can go next slide, why the engagement become more important? So this is on the left side is one of the Google ranking search algorithm. He was explaining me the weight. If you look at it, is the weight for the engagement and the click stream of the user are now jumping, depending on the vertical, to 60%. So you don't want to just write content, but you want to write content that engaging, that have call for actions. The page is fast and it's linking. Because now, as I said earlier, there is too much content on the web. Google is having a problem actually. So they look at which page got engaged, which one answered the question. So it's higher weight. And you can see on the right side, this is an e-commerce company. Before I scroll down, they already have 4 buttons. You can see they have, did you fit? Look at the bottom of the shirt. They have already added. They're adding more engagement. It's different engagement. And then the more engagement you have, the more click, the more you increase your ranking. I said, and Chris or Patrick, do you want to add anything to clickstream? Patrick, you and I work on clickstream.
Yes, but you covered it really well. The clickstream, the flow of traffic that comes back from the site to inform what did the user do in response to the results that they got. That's critical information that will continue to be critical information and continue to feed the ranking algorithms as we go forward.
Next slide.
I think that's very important, and to get that feedback and to understand those signals, because they're always throwing off signals depending upon what they're clicking on and what they're doing, and that actually changes a metadata model about the user in a real-time basis. And you can take those signals and use those signals to further refine and personalize and recommend what you are presenting to the customer or the prospect.
Of what Seth mentioned earlier, the 250. If you look at it. By the way, I put July because Google, like I said earlier, is become more dynamic. And in October, there's a lot of volatility. Somebody asked that question, we've seen the drop. Yes, it's become more dynamic. And at the end, between the clickstream and the vector search, things are going to be, even Google team cannot tell you what for your vertical, what's the number of factor. So that's why I said, study your client, study who is ranking higher than you, see what they're doing. So this is a brief summary, but just don't hold me accountable because it's always evolving every day. But as you can see, the first two is infrastructure and site is really the registration, the basic foundation. But the most important lever is the content. Is it engaging content? Are you answering questions that your customer is asking? You go back to what Chris said. Talk to your customer. Talk to your salespeople. Write things that the human are looking for. Google will reward you if you answer your customer questions. And then the left side is more the authority. I recommend to the client, ironically, take your content, create link on social media. Create a lot of link because then that's another form of clickstream. Mm-hmm. We'll have access to that. So again, just a quick example that I work with client. More apply button, add the menu, link the confirmation, expose for the e-commerce, expose the facet. You can have survey at the end of the article. Was it relevant article for you? I have clients that do that. Internal link, case study. Anytime you have engagement button, every time you scroll down, try to give them some option to give you a feedback.
So, Chris, did you want to take this and discuss some of these recommendations for optimizing content structure?
Yeah, so most of this we've already talked about. A lot of this is still basic SEO, right? Having structured formats, having your H1 tags, concise paragraphs, making sure it's easily extractable, right? So not long PhD paragraphs, writing for simple sentences, simple extraction. That conversational tone, right? So it's a dialogue. I suspect FAQs are back in our futures again. They were mostly eradicated, but they're back. The schema markup, right? We talk a lot as an organization about the schema standards. That's still important. That helps the AI pull out the content, extract the content. And I cannot emphasize this enough. We have got to start to be more diverse in the kinds of content that we offer. So with video, most of us from an SEO perspective, we thought we did video so that we had the transcript and it was keyword dense. But now that video is actually going to be pulled out and used in these AI generated blurbs that come in search. So have not just the text, but make sure you're having images, having video, making sure you're creating context around that. So if you've got an H1 tag and then your video, having those contextually keyword rich. So it's not the same word over and over, but that you're really speaking in human terms. That is all going to come. But we're definitely not saying not to do the SEO tactics. Those are still really helpful in forming these AI bots to come and grab the content that's appropriate for the search.
Yeah. It still is about content that is meaningful and that is useful. Gabrielle had asked, is there a way to know which questions lead to our website? And what do you guys think about that? I mean, that's kind of, we say here's a keyword, but when we start to get to questions, we don't have necessarily have the tools that identify exactly what those are. But I think we'll start seeing that and deriving that. What are your thoughts about that? And Chris, you had said, talk to your salespeople. What questions are they asking? But do we know how questions are leading to our website?
I would say, at least within our Google Analytics and other analytics tools, we can see at least if any of these chat systems are driving traffic to the site, but I don't think we have anything that says which question drove it. But we should start to see a lot more traffic, maybe not a lot more traffic, but we should start to see traffic being generated from these various systems at least.
So I'm going to get a little bit in trouble with Google. Actually, I picked the main keyword and then I crawl. Actually, I have a team of crawler. And then, they create a section called People Think for the questions. People also ask. They literally just add this section. So I crawl that and I see who responded. So I think you're right. Google did not put the question volume. Usually the question volume, they hide the number, is not that high. It's still doing the topic. They haven't made the switch itself, Google. But there is a way of reverse engineering.
I have another question here. What are your opinions on the impact of core web vitals like LCP, INP, CLS in making content more digestible for GEO purposes?
Look, the core vital are important. But here is what I get. I have a client that he put 100%. He's like, nothing moved. I'm like, there is 200 factor. You just move one lever. So I think, like I said, if you look at the previous slide, you want to work on the index. You want to work on your core vital. You want to work on the metadata and engaging content. So I think it's still important, like Chris said, you still got to do the basic. But I don't think it's just one lever you can suddenly see a jump.
So how about visual content? What do we need to do about visual content? Certainly transcription, right? That's important. If we have a video, we can do the transcription and make that readily available. Accessibility tags for images. So making sure we use alt text and descriptions that help an AI understand what the image is. And then adapting visual content for mobile devices is really very important. Do you want to say more about those pieces? Patrick, Chris, Abdel, who would like to chime in on some of this?
I can go for Home Depot. I work for Home Depot. Ironically, YouTube was the second SEO traffic for us. Why? People type how to build a deck, so we build massive YouTube video. But then we went to TikTok, we went to Instagram. This is why Google now is trying to get generative AI. Actually, they try to align them. If you type the how to, 90% now it triggered the generative AI. So actually video and text are converging suddenly.
Yeah, so I think tactics aren't changing for the most part. It's the kind of content we generate and the ability to not have to keyword stuff anymore. And so we're just creating better content. It's not that content is no longer king. Content remains king, right? That is a foundation of providing a good experience to the people trying to find us, that are trying to find answers. It's helpful from an AI perspective. So if we focus on our customers, I think we're still doing good. Like most of us have, as Abdel was talking about, most of us have adopted video because it's good for our customers. Images are good for the customers. We can talk all day long, but that can be hard to understand. So the more that we are focused on the kind of content that the people who are looking for us need, I think we're in good shape.
Chris, to that point, we have spent a long time in the industry building websites for computers to consume. Now we are trying to make this shift to build websites for humans to consume, and the computers are going to.
The computers come along.
The computers are speaking more like us than we ever, I think, could have imagined. How quickly this all came on us, that all of a sudden the computers now speak in a way that we speak, that we can interact with it in a way that feels very human. And we'll start to get into more existential questions of what does that mean. But for us in this topic, that's all good news for us to be able to get back to speaking in a way that we want to be able to talk, that people want to be able to understand. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. And when you start looking at, obviously the infographics are very appealing because they take textual content and create some kind of visual representation. Sometimes that visual representation is not that meaningful, right? Sometimes it's just the layout and the format, but for whatever reason, it's eye candy and it's catnip to people who are so interested in these topics. But we do need to make sure that text that's contained in the infographic is readable to the machines, so that will surface. So again, it's providing the additional contextual clues for the Gen AI.
If we think of it in terms of accessibility, I think that's really helpful because we were already doing this as much for accessibility as it was for the search engines. And so accessibility and AI, I think there's a lot of crossover here, that if we're doing it so that someone who maybe can't read, that are visually compromised, that ends up being very, very similar.
Yep, absolutely. So when you think about getting started, part of this is saying, how do we structure our content, right? And it's much more about being concise. It's much more about answering specific questions. And you can start to think about, well, what questions do people have? What are new customers asking? What are we trying to convey? And then reverse engineer that into questions, and then chunk the content so that it answers those very specific questions. We talked about data in terms of structuring the content with data, but also including data, including statistics, including citations. I just did a research project on AI adoption. I still have to write it up. For those of you who have been patiently waiting for that, maybe Chris will help me get that out the door. But the point here is that it's data that is representative of what people are experiencing, and any kind of data that cites research or cites statistically valid information is also important, right? Because those citations are going to increase the visibility. So if you find that you've surveyed your customers and 30% of your customers think that you've classified them incorrectly, I don't know, I was trying to make a joke, but nothing came to mind. There's two types of taxonomists in the world: those who lump and those who split. That's all I know about taxonomy statistics. Anyway, lumpers or splitters. I'm a lumper. Anyway, so incorporating data that's important. That might be a good statistic. Integrating the multimedia. Again, we talked about this with regard to the content visibility, making sure that we can have direct quotes and clear citations that make that content referenceable, right? It's more likely to be referenced. Chris, did you want to add to this list?
No, I do want, well, yes. So I want to double click on that credible data and the cross-linking. Abdel touched on it some, but having the statistics, authoritative facts, right, citing that. Citations are going to be really, really helpful, and they always have been, right, the concept of backlinks, but I think we can project forward that this is going to be more important even with generative AI.
The other, again, when we were talking about this, and Chris, why don't I let you kind of walk through the rest of these: content over keywords. So it's really looking at what is it that people want to answer, and not just stuffing with keywords. Do you want to pick up on that and go through the rest of these?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Seth just really said it, and probably beating a dead horse here, but think about those long tail queries, right? Those are the ones, the people that are really looking for our content, the people that we're really truly helping, speaking to them in a natural language and in bite-sized chunks. So if you're an English major like I am, worst multiple English degrees, don't write for the PhD dissertation. We really want to hone that into question and answer kinds of topics. Some of the best places to go is if you're at a company that's far enough along, you've got customer success. What are the questions that get asked all the time? That is a really excellent way to know what content to be producing and really how to talk about it. Think with your CS, your customer success hat, because someone has a question and it gets answered, right? That's going to be something. And the more of those that they're seeing, the more likely it is it's a good topic for your website. Building authority, right? That citability, being citable, right? So the AI models are looking for cross-pollination. So if you're linking to other authority figures, maybe you've got some industry associations or customers and partners, anything like that where you can cross-link, that's going to be really helpful. SEO specific tools to test and optimize. I don't know that those exist yet, but they can't be far behind. So kind of watch for those. I do go through, I use a tool called HubChat that allows me to query multiple applications to see how things are appearing. It's pretty manual today, but it is a way where I can go in and I can ask and query multiple engines. Think about your industry, right? All of this changes by industry. So some industries care about certain things over others. So be very industry specific. If you're, at a museum, you're probably going to be a little more creative than where I usually focus is deeply technical. And so it's going to be more technical data. We're going after different audiences and different languages. So, again, content and context. And ultimately, nothing really changes. It's about our users. It's about our prospects. It's about our customers and providing them what they need. The more we do that, the better SEO is, the better GEO is, and the better conversions we have on our website.
Great. And we have a couple of questions here. Karen Schneider asked if we optimize commercial websites towards efficiency for the AI to pick up on, do we bias our responses towards commercial content as opposed to academics, governance content, and peer-reviewed content, which may have a more neutral, factual point of view? I would say that you need to balance it because I think the neutral or factual point of view that can be referenced is going to be very valuable, right? And it's going to increase the likelihood that it'll be picked up. Do you guys want to add to that?
I was just talking to Patrick before this webinar. I had a client who was in the hospital. They're panicking. They're like, oh my God, a visitor went down, visitor not. We went to look at the conversion. The conversion didn't go down. I said, look, anytime you search for symptom disease, Patrick and I would, even running search, Google want to keep the head query, informational navigation. Generative AI going to keep it. Google wanted people to spend more time there because you give them more signal. You have to focus on what Google cannot do. I said, look, then doctor, they don't have doctor for cancer. Look at the long tail, Chris mentioned earlier, commercial and high intent. So I think just be flexible. I will personally spend more time on the intent commercial, but to your point, you want to have a little bit of authority. So it's a delicate balance, and be aware that Google want people, what I call the long tail questions, navigation. The AI, I see by vertical, Google is grabbing that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think there's any way to measure how often you appear in these kinds of AI generated results. So your authoritative content may be exposed, but it may not generate the click anymore. The commercial stuff we have to be really careful or really considerate, really intentional that we're getting the traffic to the site, that traffic's going down. So we have to make sure that we understand our customer journeys and that we understand the path that we think people will follow to raise their hands and have us reach back out to them or make it easy for that sale. I think Abdul's right. I think generally speaking, our conversions probably aren't going to go down, but our bounce rates are going to go down, right? Because we're not just getting all these people trying to click looking for that guacamole recipe, trying to figure out what it is, and then getting to a Safeway ad trying to sell them something else. Like all of that's going to go away. We have to be prepared for that traffic to go down, but make sure that traffic that you get is really optimized for your customer journey.
It's very hard to find guacamole recipes on our site. I have to admit that.
Man, Seth, what you missed opportunity here, dude.
Let's see, we have another comment here. We know 15% of the searches on Google are new at any given point. With the advent of GEO, are we seeing an increase in the trend for new searches and longer tail queries?
I think this goes back to the brand discussion. Brands that are not known are not going to get those new searches, right? So if we're a new company, that brand awareness is going to be really important. So we have to diversify how we're marketing. If companies are really focused on SEO as their only path to any kind of marketing, to any kind of lead generation, I think that is in danger, and we really have to diversify that. So brand, a lot of early companies, they don't want to do a lot of brand because they need leads immediately. But I think in this new world, brand is going to have to be important. Otherwise, they're going to be invisible in search.
Let's see. There's another question here. How do you think this generative AI is going to help in compatibility? Example, auto parts, specific size is going to fit across multiple products. Currently, we have to list all of those. Will Gen AI have a different way?
Look, this is where Patrick can elaborate. We've seen that in the search world. If you don't have the right taxonomy, once you get to the auto part, you have to be precise. I think the generative AI is a long way because they don't have that specific taxonomy. This is where accuracy does matter. For the buyer, accuracy matters. You're not going to buy a part for your car that doesn't match. So generative AI or not generative AI, I would say focus on your taxonomy and have the precision. Patrick, do you want anything? We've seen that before where we're chasing.
Oh, yeah. Part number search is classically difficult for a generative kind of search environment, for a RAG kind of search environment, for a vector search. It does that very poorly because it doesn't have the training on specific part numbers. It can tell you the difference between a hose and a hose clamp, but if you put in the actual part number for that, it's not going to know. And that's where marrying the vector-based generative capabilities with those catalog-specific, terminology-focused keyword search capabilities is still really important in today's market, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
I think it's important to remind folks too that generative AI is a great prediction tool. So it's like on our phones when you start to type out and it predicts what the next word might be and you hit tab and go yes. It is that on steroids. So when we talk about AI knowing stuff, it's knowing. What they're doing is they're predicting words, and they do it really incredibly well. So that's I think kind of gets to your point, Patrick, on it doesn't know about all of these part numbers. That's not really an easy language model, so it doesn't see that enough to know, in quotes.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And and the question becomes, how does that content become visible? In the old days of faceted search, we had to map out all of the facet patterns and build a sitemap because the content wasn't visible unless somebody was clicking through and selecting those facets. Maybe there's something analogous that's going to go on with GEO. I do not know, but it's a really valid point. Here's another question. For countries where AI overviews have not been rolled out yet, Canada, is there a way that we can see if or how our content is appearing in AI overviews in the US or places where it's already rolled out? Do you guys have an answer for that?
I use VPN. I have developed all over the world a client. I say just use a VPN. Install a VPN on your machine, go to the US, see the same search. That's a simple answer that I did for several clients.
Great.
Yep, same. I would say the same thing. Use a VPN. You can get that endpoint to look like it's anywhere in the world, and then you'll get answers that are localized to that area.
Yeah. So there's lots and lots of challenges. I mean, obviously we're going to be losing traffic. It's going to be harder to make organic traffic, to obtain organic traffic. It's hard to predict which content the AI is going to choose. So we have an unpredictability. Content needs to be authoritative. It needs to be concise. It needs to be conversational. So that means that we have additional complexity to our content operations. And of course, we want multimodal content, multimedia content, images, videos, infographics. That's going to add to production costs and to production time. And we don't have as many tools to measure and optimize GEO success. So, and these algorithms are changing all the time. We know that these models are changing. They require constant updates, and there's going to be less brand control. Your content may be used without driving users to your site, right? That's what a lot of that's what the New York Times and Wall Street Journal and a lot of these major publications are saying is you're using our content, but you're not paying for it. And we're not getting traffic from it. And of course, creating rich media, which is what we talked about before, is going to be resource intensive. So if there are no other questions, we can actually give you 2 minutes back to your day. Any final comments from our panelists before we finish up here?
Remember your customers first.
Got it.
It's a brave new world. Don't be afraid. Just dig in, and if you need help, we're happy to help.
Yep, absolutely.
And then engaging customer content, and then also closing the loop. The tracking, we didn't talk about tracking. Make sure your UTM are working, because Google need that feedback loop.
Absolutely. So you have our contact information. We'll get you the slides. Feel free to reach out, as Patrick has said. And we will see you next time. We have another session in 2 weeks. We should probably put that schedule up, but we are right at the top of the hour. So great timing. Thank you to our panelists. I really appreciate the insights. Thanks to everybody who listened in. And Carolyn, thank you for your operational support in the back end, making all of this possible. And thank you to our sponsors, CMS Wire and VKTR. There will be an article after every session. We do have one published today from VKTR, Vector is how it's pronounced. And then there'll be one coming up in another week. And then there'll be one companion article to each of these sessions. So keep your eyes open for those. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Bye now.